As every year, Formula One has that moment of the season where the different options to form the duos of the different teams for upcoming seasons are shuffled, taking into account the performance of the drivers, expiration of contracts, and availability of talents coming out of their different teams or moving up from lower categories. This year's Asylum season is already making big waves, and it's time for us to tell you about our particular and traditional annual analysis of the drivers' market, where we see which teams could change their duo, which drivers could go to other teams, and which guys could be the new debutants of the top circuit of motor racing, analyzing the different options and profiles that each structure is looking for in case they need a new driver, and having many contracts that end this season and a new team that will enter. In 2026, there is much to discuss. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the analysis of the Formula One driver market in 2024. To start, as always, we have to first talk about those teams that already have their pair confirmed for 2026, although that does not mean that some kind of change cannot come. First, the Sauber team, which will become Audi in 2026. It has its two drivers, Nico Hülkenberg and Gabriel Bortoleto, signed under multi-year contracts in 2024. So no change is expected in the landscape unless the performance of the drivers falls abruptly during the rest of this 2025. So Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg will be Audi's duo in the 2026 season. Ferrari has also confirmed their driver lineup for the 2026 season, and it is that both Lewis Hamilton, recent signing of the team, as well as Charles Leclerc are secured with multi-year contracts that will allow them to race the next season. The Italian team will keep Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton as their drivers for the 2026 season. Similarly, Haas secured its two drivers for 2024 by signing both Oliver Burman and Esteban Ocon to multi-year contracts. So the duo of the American team will remain the same in the next season, barring major surprises. McLaren has had its driver lineup secured for the upcoming season for quite some time. Norris renewed his contract until the end of 2027, and very early in 2025, Oscar Piastri extended his contract until the end of 2028. So the Papaya team duo is going to stay for at least a few years with their drivers, with contracts already for the long term in the team. Williams is a team that likewise has both Alex Albon and their recent signing, Carlos Sainz, secured for at least a few more seasons. So Williams will start the new era of Formula One with the Carbon duo, that is, Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz Jr. And this is where things can take a slight turn. Aston Martin is the last team with a confirmed driver duo for the upcoming seasons, having both Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll under contract for a few more years. However, despite this, it has been rumored that this team could undergo some changes if certain conditions are met. It has been rumored that Max Verstappen could leave the team if his current car worsens and is unable to compete for the driver's title. This would let him trigger a clause potentially enabling his exit from the team. And one of his possible destinations, as has been said within the paddock, is Aston Martin, thanks to Adrian Newey, the Honda engines. And that Lawrence Stroll could pay the astronomical salary that the driver is obviously going to demand. And despite the fact that the current duo is under contract, if there's anything Lawrence Stroll has taught us in the past, it's that if he has the opportunity to sign a promising driver, he can terminate some contracts if he so desires. Similarly, there is talk that Honda, their engine supplier from 2016, might have a bit more say in the choice of drivers. And some experts suggest that there could be an opportunity to position Yuki Tsunoda for one of those seats. He has always been the protege of the Japanese brand. However, it appears unlikely that any action will be taken before Honda enters 2016. So this option seems extremely complicated, at least for the next season. So indeed, for now, both Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll remain under contract. But we'll have to see if signing Verstappen is a real possibility. And if Lawrence and his team decide to go all out for him, sacrificing one of their two drivers. Now it's time to talk about those teams that only have one driver confirmed for the next season. And one of them is the team from the Red Bull Racing structure, which has not stopped having changes since the start of the season. Currently, they only have Max Verstappen under contract, who should be on the team until the end of 2028. However, recent rumors suggest that if Max's car doesn't allow him to compete for the Drivers' Championship, he could activate clauses enabling him to leave the team. So, despite the contract, there is a possibility that both seats may have to be replaced for upcoming seasons. The other seat of this team is currently held by Yuki Tsunoda of Japan, who moved up to Red Bull after Liam Lawson's disastrous stint. And it is precisely the one that, by probabilities, is easier. It's likely that changes can happen, specifically regarding Yuki Tsunoda's seat, which is not secured for 2026. And being very objective, the seat that is most at risk of replacement is currently the one that the Japanese has. Yuki lacks a contract for next season, and that seat is highly sought after. If the pilot doesn't perform, he'll be the first to be beheaded. Yuki, at least at this moment, can boast of performing better than Liam Lawson, but not much better than Checo Perez was at the end of 2024. But these performances may help him keep his seat, but if he has any kind of slump, as all his predecessors have had, they will not hesitate to replace him. The problem is that supposedly Red Bull wants to form young talents with their program and promote them to the main team when they are ready. But right now, at this particular point, they would only have Isaac Hayar and Liam Lawson available. It's very unlikely that Liam will have a chance to return to the team even if he performs well in racing bulls. Because if there's one thing Red Bull hates more than their number 2 driver starting to fall off pace, it's having to admit they were wrong. And promoting Liam Lawson again, if he starts doing well in racing bulls, would mean having to accept that all they needed to do was give him time to adapt. And what about when they didn't promote drivers like Gasly or Albon, who also ended up being demoted? It's very unlikely that Lawson could be promoted again even if he starts to perform well and improve his performances in this 2024. So I can say that the probability is very low that he will have the opportunity to move up to the main team again. If Red Bull plans to keep depending on their young talents, Hajar is the only one next in line. As a possible replacement for Tsunoda, or in any case if Tsunoda does a good job, they will have to renew the Japanese driver for 2026. Red Bull may also choose to promote one of their Formula 2 drivers to racing bulls mid-season. Let them finish the calendar. And if they show skill and it's necessary to promote them to the main team? How does Red Bull handle this situation? As in the past, it wouldn't be ruled out. Now, what will happen if Max Verstappen activates his supposed performance clauses and leaves the team? For Max Verstappen, only 2 options are being considered if he leaves: joining Aston Martin or Mercedes. And depending on that, 2 things can happen. One is that in the end, the team decides to continue counting on him and making Hatcher while they form talents. Or are they precisely looking for potential victims who fall into one of these teams like Andrea Kimi, Antonelli, Joe Russell, Fernando Alonso, or Lance Stroll? Although being realistic, Max's departure is still a very unlikely scenario, but it could happen. So, in general terms, these would be the most realistic candidates if any kind of change in the team was required. So the lineup for upcoming seasons could be Verstappen continuing, that Tsunoda's renewal takes place, or in any case that Isaac Hayar ends up being promoted if they consider that Tsunoda is not doing a good job. Alpine has just one driver contracted for the 2026 season, and it's Pierre Gasly, who since the departure of Esteban Ocon is the undisputed team leader. But the seat has been in doubt since before it was taken in 2025. It's precisely that of Jack Dujan, who has been rumored a lot throughout this season that he only has a contract for a few races, that his replacement is imminent, that the team is going to protect him until the end of the year, and a very long etc. of more things that we have been hearing. What is certain is that Duja's seat does not have a contract for 2016, and whether it's for this season or the next. There is a clear pilot who is bet on as a possible replacement, and it's the Argentine Franco Colapinto, who at the end of 2024 signed with the Goals for a 3-year contract. And at least for now, he is the reserve pilot. But he is precisely the person because of whom all these rumors have been unleashed, and the person because of whom the situation is under pressure. Monumental to Jack Duha. It is understood that it is a reality and that there is the possibility of substitution in this very season. Alpine has acknowledged that they were responsible for the pressure on the Australian driver. So, at least for now, it seems that the options for that second seat lie in 2 candidates: either renew Duhan or give the opportunity to Franco Colapinto. In itself, we could not rule out Polarin, who is also a reserve driver for Alpine, but his chances seem much more limited at this particular moment. So yes, in general terms, these seem to be the only options that the Gauls have, or at least the ones they are considering for future seasons. From this point, we have to talk about those teams that do not have any confirmed driver for the next season, which in this case are Mercedes Racing, Bulls, and the new Cadillac team. The German team holds one of the most attractive seats for the coming years. Even more so considering the regulatory change that is coming for 2026. And currently that seat is owned by George Russell and Andrea Kimi Antonelli. To be honest, Toto seems particularly satisfied with both of them, at least currently. There are rumors that Russell is about to have a contract extension, and the progress that Antonelli is making is to Toto's liking. However, there are two factors that could change the duo if they end up happening. Wolf Mercedes and Max Verstappen have a genuine interest in joining forces, or Andrea Kim and Antonelli's progress slows down. Start making mistakes, adding few points, and Mercedes sees a substitution as very necessary, at least for now. Toto has commented that he is happy with his pair of drivers, denying rumors of a possible arrival of Verstappen. As mentioned, he is pleased with their progress. Antonelli progressively, so the renewal of both drivers is expected. But the possibility of signing Verstappen is still on the table. Similarly, it is understood that if Antonelli collapses and Verstappen is not interested in the team, Bottas could be picked up in case of an emergency. Currently, the most probable options appear to be renewing Andrea, Kim, Antonelli, and Joe Russell, but the threat of a possible arrival of Verstappen is there as a perhaps unlikely possibility, but for this moment not at all impossible. Since last year, Red Bull's B team Racing Bulls has again become a team to nurture young talents for the future. And currently they have both Isaac Hayar and Alain Lawson, who are the drivers of this team. But there is absolutely nothing certain for the next season. Lawson's performance is particularly low due to his lack of confidence. And if there's something Red Bull doesn't have, it's patience with their boys. But what if the seats of Isaac Hayar and or Liam Lawson require a replacement? Considering that this team has transformed again to become a structure of young talents, it's impossible not to look elsewhere other than the Red Bull Junior team for replacements. Among them, we should prioritize those participating in Formula 2. And currently, Red Bull has 3 drivers in this category: the German Oliver Goethe, the Spanish Josep Maria Martí, and the British Arvind Lindblad. And here, two things can happen, just like last year. The one who is better positioned in the driver's table to promote him to Racing Bulls, or that Red Bull directly promotes the driver they value the most out of these 3. And precisely out of these 3 guys. Red Bull is closely monitoring Arvind Lindblad, who many have dubbed their new Max Verstappen. A 17-year-old boy who has had a good run in lower categories and who Red Bull sees as a huge promise. Keep thinking about the team's future. Meanwhile, Pepe Martí, currently second in the Formula 2 Championship, is a driver they signed in late 2023. And although he disappointed in 2024, this year he's having more solid performances in this category. A potential promotion to Formula 1 is plausible, as Isaac advanced under comparable circumstances last year. He had a poor 2023 in Formula 2, but finished runner-up in 2024, prompting Red Bull to promote him to their B team. Goethe has the weakest reputation and record of the 3 and is currently last in the drivers' standings. But obviously, being in this position, if it ends up being a good season, it could be an option. In theory, we should also consider Yumo Iwasa, who competes in the Japanese Super Formula, but Yumo is more of a Honda driver. And as Honda is leaving Red Bull in 2026, it's unlikely he'll stay with the team after this. So I believe that the 3 guys who are in Formula 2 are the strongest options Red Bull has to bet on in upcoming seasons. So everything comes down to renewing their 2 drivers, both Isaac Hayar and Liam Lawson. Or simply bet on any of those they have in Formula 2 if they have a good result in this 2025, ladies and gentlemen. Cadillac joins Formula 1 as the 11th team, a first since 2016, embarking on a new adventure. Therefore, drivers are sought for this structure in upcoming seasons. And that search has already begun, but we have to be honest, the discourse about what kind of drivers Cadillac is looking for has changed a lot in these months since their arrival in the category was made official. The first discourse was, we want a driver with experience and a North American driver, but due to different circumstances, both objectives may not be met. I understand that much can be speculated, using various names, about a new team entering Formula 1, especially one with numerous connections, in various racing categories like Endurance, IndyCar, Championships, GT3 and more. So this list could be supremely long. Talking about simple, it could be, can it happen? So, for practical purposes, I'm going to stick in this part of the video to talk about those drivers with the most realistic chances of being part of this team. In 2026, if we base ourselves on his initial statement, an American driver and a driver with experience, we first have to see who meets the first requirement. And when we talk about an American pilot, is there one that stands out from the rest of the candidates? Colton Herta, who since this project was about bringing Andretti to Formula 1, has been mentioned as the biggest candidate. And some even mention him as the favorite to end up getting one of the seats. However, the 25-year-old driver currently does not have the super license and only has 32 of the 40 points needed to obtain it. So he would need to finish 5th this year in the IndyCar Championship to get it. And he is currently 7th. So if he doesn't reach that position, he can say goodbye to his chances of being part of the Formula 1 world. There are also rumors about Kyle Kirkwood, an Andretti team IndyCar driver. But he would basically have the same problem. He doesn't have the super license and would need to finish in a good position this year in IndyCar to be able to get it. But what if Andretti Cadillac can't find among their IndyCar drivers the American driver to represent them in Formula 1? There is still one who could fulfill that purpose, Jack Crawford, who has spent 3 seasons in Formula 2 and who could get that opportunity basically for being American. But like the others, he doesn't have the super license and needs to finish this year at least in the 6th position of the championship to obtain it and thus meet that requirement. So, in general terms, these 3 are the American drivers with the most realistic chances of being signed. Now, one way or another, Cadillac will have to look at drivers with experience in Formula 1. And there are 4 candidates that stand out in what could be Cadillac's interest in the future. The first of them is Valtteri Bottas, who has been mentioned as a candidate from day one. Because of his vast experience and talent shown at Sauber, where despite the difficult car, he always outperformed his teammate, in general terms. Moreover, his resume includes working for top teams and extensive Formula 1 experience, which would greatly benefit this team's development, year after year. Another potential candidate is Guan Yu Zhou, largely due to his connections with Ferrari, his future engine supplier. In 2026-2028, Guan Yu Zhou is the reserve driver. And something that could make him especially attractive is that the Chinese driver has many sponsors, and precisely the Chinese market is very appealing to Cadillac. But in today's world, particularly with the ongoing United States-China trade war, the world is becoming increasingly smaller. The possibility that Zhou could return to the category, although it is not entirely ruled out. Daniel Ricciardo has also been mentioned due to his popularity in the United States and extensive Formula 1 experience. Although it is also true. When a fan asked if he would return to Formula 1, he said he was done with the category and had no interest in returning. But despite this, I'm sure Cadillac will look for him, and I personally wouldn't rule it out completely. And obviously Sergio Checo Perez is a very real possibility, and I would dare to say that he is one of the strongest, as he meets the requirement of having experience no more and no less than 14 years in Formula. Moreover, he has experience working for a top team like Red Bull. The intel Checo may possess would entice Cadillac, along with the millions the Mexican driver commands, in terms of sponsorships, which would be nothing to scoff at for Cadillac's structure, which is just about to start. So Checo is a very strong candidate. But the only downside he sees in this situation is that Cadillac will be a long-term project, so its first years will be about structuring, learning, and probably belonging to the bottom of the grid. And something that Checo has always mentioned was that his stay in Formula 1 was conditioned on having a project that motivated him to keep up with the dizzying pace of the category. I'm unsure about his interest, especially Checo's, in starting this new phase, aware that Cadillac's initial years will be quite challenging. And in the end, this, plain and simple, is a situation that he will have to ponder. If he's interested in returning under those terms, hoping to have a shot at fighting for a title again in about 5-6 years. Or if he is happy with his current life, close to his family and friends. But broadly speaking, these seem to be the strongest candidates that could exist on Cadillac's list for 2026. Bringing the desired drivers to the team will depend on various factors. Despite this, I believe these seats could provide the most surprises. As the months progress, the priorities may change. And with that, the names that Cadillac is looking for and the ones it ends up confirming to race in 2026. And with this, we conclude this analysis of the Formula 1 driver market in 2025. But here is where I ask you, What is your prediction of the signings that can be made this season? Which drivers do you think will make it to Formula 1? Which drivers do you think will leave? And which drivers do you think will switch teams? Let me know all your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Goodbye. Subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you know when I'm uploading a new video, and share this with your friends. Also, I invite you to follow us on our Instagram and Twitter accounts, the link to which will be in the description of this video. And see you soon for more content on this, your Skyline Racing channel. Thank you for tuning in and see you later.